Coming up on Tekthing, we go hands-on with the Nexus 5X, 6P, and the new Apple TV. Gaming keyboard and mice recos, OneDrive shrinks, the beginning of Black Friday, some awesomely useful utilities, and more. It's all coming up on Tekthing. If you get something useful out of this episode of Tekthing, please consider contributing to the show at patreon.com/Tekthing. We're brought to you by viewers just like you. Thanks so much.
I'm Shannon Morse.
And I'm Patrick Norton.
And this is Tekthing, where we make technology behave.
Especially today.
With the new Apple TV.
Yeah, well, okay, with Nexus 6P, 5X, Apple TV, it is a crazy week for exciting new products.
It's been a busy week.
If you like iOS or Android. Actually, technically, it's tvOS.
Oh.
But I'll get into that later.
Fancy.
A year ago, Microsoft said OneDrive storage would be unlimited for business or consumer subscribers to Office 365. It is now capped at 1 terabyte for personal or 5 terabytes combined for up to 5 users of Office 365 Home. If you've got more, you've got a year, 12 months to move it somewhere else. What caused this? Microsoft says excessive storage.
Well, what they expect.
Yeah, well, apparently it was one of the things they called out, like, where is it? In some instances, this exceeded 75 terabytes per user or 14,000 times the average.
Duh.
Instead of focusing on extreme backup scenarios, we want to remain focused on delivering high-value productivity and collaboration experiences that benefit the majority of OneDrive users, which basically means, yeah, you know what, there were a couple of jerks, so we're punishing you all.
Well, you know what? Some of those jerks might have been photographers, or maybe they were podcasters saving all their stuff on their unlimited drives.
And you know what? Technically speaking, actually, I guess Microsoft's using the mobile carrier definition of unlimited, which is unlimited as long as you give us a fat check, but not if you actually think you're getting unlimited. Yeah. Well, and you know, people got to make money, but prices have also gone up on the paid tiers. You get 50 gigabytes now for $199 a month. The 100 and 200 gigabyte options are gone on OneDrive. So basically, it's like $2 a month for 50 gigabytes, or you can get 1 terabyte for Office 365 subscribers.
Okay.
If you have a 100 or 200 gigabyte plan, you get to keep it. By the way, that new 50 gigabyte plan, same price as the old 100 gigabyte plan.
Ooh, ouch.
And the free tier is now down to 5 gigabytes. Which is kind of a bummer because the free tier used to be 15 gigabytes plus a 15 gigabyte bonus camera roll for photos. Derp.
Derp.
Derp. In other news.
In other news.
It's not dead yet.
Oh yeah, this was so funny. So there was several articles recently who said that Chrome OS and Android were going to be merging.
Yeah. Or Chrome was going to be folded into Android.
Yeah. So the Google Chrome blog says, while we've been working on ways to bring together the best of both operating systems, there's no plan to phase out Chrome OS, and they announced the $85 Asus Chromebit as well.
Which is basically Chrome OS on a stick.
Yeah, pretty much.
So that's good.
It's cute. Should we get it on the show? What do you think?
Oh, I'm going to ask Asus if they'll send us one.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, no, I don't know. It's funny. I'm running into more and more people that are like, you know what? I just want to give Chrome laptops to everyone. I'm tired of doing tech support. I'm tired of, I don't know who it was, but there was this hysterical, like, it was somebody in security, and they were like, hey, while you're home for Thanksgiving, buy a bunch of these hardware keys and give your family the gift of second factor authentication. And then like a few minutes later, there's a tweet, because you know you're going to spend all Thanksgiving clearing malware off their PCs anyway.
I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm going home for Thanksgiving this year, and I know exactly what I'm doing this year.
Mom, where have you been downloading software?
Pretty much, yeah. I'm sure she's going to be like, you know, I turned on my computer and just something happened. It seemed to blow up. There was smoke. That happened once. Don't ask.
I want to ask so badly. Oh, by the way, I know none of you would do this, but if you ever have like a pop-up that says, your machine is infested, click here to install our free antivirus software.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Just saying. Oh my goodness. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the new Apple TV, TLDR, for folks with large collections of iTunes videos that like the idea of gaming and running apps on the Apple TV using the new interface and remote. The remote, by the way, you'll either love or hate. Yeah, this is the box for you. Oh, yeah, you can also talk to Apple TV now, too.
Ooh.
Yeah, it doesn't talk back.
No, it doesn't.
Siri's kind of mute.
I hate the remote.
Yeah,
I just had to get that out of my system. I hate the remote.
I hated the remote with a fiery passion of 1,000 suns, but I'm coming to a detente with the remote.
Okay.
We'll get into that in a second. So if you want more information, it's an A8 processor, 802.11 ABG Ethernet, USB-C, get this, for service and support. Because, okay, H.264 video up to 1080p, 60 frames per second. You basically like higher main profile level 4.2 or lower, HDMI 1.4, so no 4K, no HDR video. You know, and I was watching a friend of mine blow a gasket about the lack of 4K support for the new Apple TV. For example, the lip that was on Shannon just to say, yeah, you can lip on demand. Just means they're going to sell you a 4K version of the Apple TV when they actually have 4K content in the iTunes store.
That's true. It's marketing.
There's a lightning cable in the box so you can charge the remote. It is not a USB-C cable, so you cannot charge the remote off of the Apple TV itself. The remote is fascinating. And you'll notice, once again, I've picked up the remote backwards.
Oh, you did.
You might not be able to see it, but one half is shiny, one half is textured, the whole thing is glass, and look, there's kind of a rectangle of buttons. It's very sort of classic Greek proportion style action kind of stuff. Yeah. So menu, home, play and pause, the record button or the microphone button to call Siri, and best of all, volume. The touchpad is clickable and has a little embedded mic at the top. I am constantly like picking it up the wrong side up and having to flip it around. I love the volume controls, they're a really nice addition. I miss the feedback of the buttons on the older Apple remote, but the trackpad works and it has a lot more promise for gaming. I think mostly because A, it's currently required as the primary input for all games. Wouldn't be surprised if that goes away. And B, there's a built-in accelerometer and gyroscope for, waving things around. I'm
throwing your glass remote across the room. Bright idea.
Don't do that. Well, okay, so we actually have the screen running up here. This is, I want to say Earthscape, but of course it's not the right name. But the best part of this is if you want to go home, you press one button.
Home.
Darren, quick, turn back, turn back! Or did I just change the channel remotely? That was Earthlapse. But if you've ever done the sort of like Netflix dance where you had to press a button 20 times to get back to the home menu, this is the single best thing about the Apple TV is the home button.
Yeah, that's handy.
The gaming has obviously taken up a big step. There's a new GPU, there's a new graphics processor.
The gaming does look really good.
It does. And it's going to load. This is the one thing it really seems to try the processor on this Apple TV is like loading transistor. It's really interesting. Apps are limited to kind of a 200 megabyte initial download. Then they can download initial or additional storage if they need it. It's kind of funny. Transistor is still loading. So let me go back. It's kind of funny. I kind of wish they'd stuck with the old sort of D-pad style buttons from the old remote because the feedback is really, really nice. I really wish I could connect a Bluetooth keyboard to the Apple TV. The new on-screen typing thing is miserable. For example, if I go, oh, look, wait, here's Transistor, just to be schizophrenic. And let me turn the volume up. So the graphics are pretty gorgeous. A lot of it's like sort of classic indie game styling. And it's been interesting. What I finally figured out is if you hold your finger at the very edge of the trackpad, you will walk in that direction, which sounds kind of stupid to say out loud, but I don't think either one of us realized that initially when we were playing with it. But if I go home and let's say I want to search for a new application, hey kids, let's go to the App Store and let's go back to the App Store, not settings. And okay, I'm going to search, right? I can't use Siri to search, so this is what the entry menus look like on everything, and it may be a little blown out on your screen at home, but it's literally A through Z in one giant link of 26 letters.
Okay.
So you're sitting there and it's like, oh, what do I want to look for? Let's look for Toca Boca, right? Because my kids love their games. And okay, T-O-C, and we're getting a bunch of...
Oh, that's annoying.
Yeah, and you can start to flick it and get faster.
I much prefer the QWERTY style keyboard layout that you get a lot on the set-top boxes nowadays, like my Roku.
Or or the previous version of the Apple TV.
I don't like that.
Yeah, so it's and who knows, maybe they did testing and this is actually more efficient and I just can't tell. The new interface, Siri! So the new interface is pretty basic, right? It looks like the old interface.
Boxes.
Yeah, a bunch of boxes. Once you get used to
Can you customize layout?
You know, I haven't dug in that far yet.
Okay.
Because, you know, 2 days ago I had 5 apps.
Oh, yeah.
Apps are coming hot and heavy.
Cool.
And I've also been trying to find useful things to do with Siri. So you hold the microphone button down, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And you get, hey, look,
Cool.
there's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And best of all, look, kids, iTunes,
nice.
Netflix, Hulu, and you can choose kind of like by season or what's available.
And we also tested this for like Game of Thrones, and I discovered that it doesn't show any Amazon Prime.
Well, because we'll talk about Amazon Prime in a minute. Don't get all Amazon Prime just yet. But if you do something like, oh, if I hit the microphone button, Vin Diesel, it'll give you Vin Diesel movies, right? Oh, it's thinking. This is the longest it's ever thought. And most of these are actually only available on iTunes, but for example, XXX is also available on Netflix, and boom, it actually
Cool.
automatically gives me the one that it's available on. You know, if you do something like movies about baseball, it's going to give you a big, sorry, I can't search by topic, but I can search by title, actors, or directors in categories like thrillers or comedies. And what was funny is kind of randomly, so Siri doesn't talk back except through the screen.
Oh,
And
okay.
then maybe I'm not looking in the right place, but I haven't really found much documentation. For example, it's obviously not doing as much as Alexa does on the Echo.
Right, yeah.
But there's stuff like General Motors stock price. And boom, General Motors stock price. What is the weather in New York City?
Oh, cool.
So there's a bunch of stuff in there.
That's more than what the Roku can do.
Yeah, well, the Roku's pretty focused. So
Yeah.
the things we're looking at right here, whoops, that's the weather, but let's go back. I love the home button. So, you know, what we used to think of, or what Apple kept telling us to call channels, are basically now apps. Except now the developers can submit them willy-nilly. Not all iOS apps are tvOS apps.
Okay.
Did I mention tvOS? Basically, tvOS is iOS for the Apple TV. And the file size restrictions that kind of started showing up with the Apple Watch are now like tvOS, 200 megabyte restriction on the initial file download. I think this is going to be really interesting with larger games because Apple's basically said that you don't necessarily get permanent storage on the drive for your app. So everything has to be stored in iCloud, which means in some situations it's possible that you could end up having to download stuff every time you do a game. It's not happening yet. Speaking of which, Apple TV comes in 32 and 64 gigabyte versions. I wouldn't bother with a 64 gigabyte version unless you are a serious gamer and expect to download all of the games. tvOS is kind of curious. Some applications, like when you start rootling around, you'll be like, hey, I already own this application, and hey, I'm going to get it for free. And in other situations, you have to pay for a tvOS version. tvOS games are kind of pricey. Harmonix Beat Sports and Transistor, for example, are $9.99 each.
Whew,
which
that is a little pricey.
For a game you're going to use on one device in your house, I thought so. The thing we were showing at the opening when we started is called Earthlapse, and you know, it's kind of funny, like, let's stare at video from the International Space Station. Does Not Commute, which is a game my kids love, works horribly with the Apple remotes. You basically, you know, it's one of those games, it works better on this than it does on NVIDIA's Shield, but there are situations where the interface designed for a touchscreen is horrendous on something else. Carrot Weather is forecast I/O weather with attitude. Anytime I get addressed as a meatbag, that's always fun. Greetings, meatbag. I am Carrot, your new weather bot. Transistor, I think, looks gorgeous. Nilay Patel over at The Verge called out QVC as being the single most interesting app on the new Apple TV. I am not brave enough to download QVC.
Wow.
There's no podcasts app yet. There's no Downcast. Plex showed up a few days after the Apple TV shipped. Which brings me to Amazon Video.
Yeah.
So one of the folks I think
there ain't none.
There ain't none. But here's the thing: is Apple has very clearly said, and they've told journalists that Amazon hasn't submitted anything. They're welcome to.
Yeah. Well, Amazon's been kind of a jerk face when it comes to set-top boxes recently.
Yeah,
we've seen.
But you know, the thing that, you know, I mean, there's no dearth of video apps on here. Netflix, HBO Now, Hulu, Showtime, CBS, ABC, Fox Now, NBC, you know.
So all the things.
Yeah, all the things are basically available, right? These are all mostly networks, but, you know, Hulu's available, Netflix is available, you know, wait.
So do you like it?
I think so. Vimeo's available, Yahoo's available. Yeah, I give it a thumbs up. My question is, do most people need it?
Yeah.
Are you going to video game? Like, you can attach, it's kind of funny, all games currently have to use the new Apple remote, but you can optionally connect a Bluetooth game controller, which in some games is awesome, in most games not so much. I like it. For the majority of stuff we do, I don't think, or in my house, right, because we primarily use the Apple TV, obviously, for viewing video. I think it's going to be interesting to see where the app situation is in 6 months or a year. There are some cool apps, but I don't know if you need to, buy a brand new, $200 box so you can watch the International Space Station. Although the whole meat bag thing, the games are actually getting pretty good.
Sun's out. Time to go tanning.
It's a very strange application. Oh, there's Mount Doom. Let's see if it's still like 114 degrees over there.
So I don't have a lot of investment in iTunes currently, so I don't feel like this would be a good investment for me.
No, and that's just it. If you do not have a lot of iTunes in your life, don't bother. Unless there's some particular game that you're obsessed with. If you do have a lot of iTunes in your life, or you do have a ton invested in games on the iOS platform and you're hoping they show up on the Apple TV, that's a good justification for it.
Yeah.
The remote alone.
I hate the remote.
You hate the remote. The remote gets easier with practice.
But it's so small. It's so small, and the metal on the back brings out so much moisture in my hands. It just, ugh.
I think it was just the excitement of transistor making you sweat.
Please.
I don't know. Compared to the existing Apple remote, it's not that big of a transition in terms of physical size, but in terms of the touchpad itself, it took a little bit of work. Thumbs up, the majority of people with Apple TVs, if all you use it for is video and you don't see yourself, particularly sucked into any of the apps, you don't need it, at least until they shut off development for the existing Apple TV. Just kidding. I'm sure they won't do that. Oh my goodness. Darren. What do you think Darren's doing right now?
Hacking something.
Are you hacking, Darren?
That's right, Patrick. Not only am I in your spot, but I am also hacking your Model M keyboard right now. And if you tune into Hack5 at hak5.org, you'll find out how you can hack into cars' keyless entry systems. Tune in.
We're back with another rapid fire roundup this week, and Patrick has 3 more incredibly useful, and I love these utilities. They're so good. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Go.
Okay. I'm going to quote Wikipedia here. F.lux, a computer program that adjusts a computer display's color temperature according to its location and time of day based on a user-specified set of longitude and latitude, geographical coordinates, a zip code, or a city name, as well as featuring manual user controls. Basically, it's this really simple app. It runs, on your machine. It's available for Mac. It's available for Windows, and it adjusts the color temperature of your screen as the day advances and get dark. It was designed to reduce eye strain during nighttime use and to, quote, prevent disruption of normal sleep patterns. If you're doing precise color work in Photoshop or Premiere, turn F.lux off. It's off right now. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere and days are getting shorter and you'd like to experiment with less eye strain and blasting your eyeballs with blue sunshiny light from your screen before bed, thus disrupting your ability to sleep or just making it that much harder, download this. F.lux, it's available for OS X, it's available for Windows, it's free. Look for Redshift if you are on Linux.
Number 2.
Number 2. I love this app. This thing right here in the middle, SD Formatter version 4.0.
So cute.
The more I play around with Raspberry Pis and various Arduino powered machines like 3D printers, the more I find myself with SD cards Windows can't read, or my personal favorite that Windows says have 2 megabytes available when they're 64 gigabyte cards. This is the, so basically what you're looking for is the lovely folks at the SD Card Association. The SD Association, they're the industry group for SD card standards. Mac or Windows available, it lets you wipe a card, at least all but the little protected area that's used for security. It is free, it is incredibly useful if you've ever found yourself going, I can't read this card. Can you read it in your machine?
Oh, great. Read it.
Well, I've actually live booted.
Let me open my command line and use the disk manager.
Well, it's nuts. I've been in situations where it was like 2 in the morning and I downloaded a Linux distro and created a USB boot disk so I could clean up a card and access it. And then I found out about the SD formatter for Windows, which brings us to Rufus.
Number 3.
I mentioned this during the elementary OS quick look last week. It runs on Windows. It's tiny and it creates bootable USB drives from ISO files. It is free. It is fast. It is incredibly useful. And while we're talking incredibly useful, let's take
You have a number 4?
I have number 4. I'm out of control.
Number 4.
Puriform makes a program called Specky.
Oh.
If you're wondering like what OS is on your system, or you need an inventory to be like, what's the CPU? How much RAM is in this machine? Doesn't matter. Like somebody hands you a box and is like, fix this.
Yes.
And you're like, what is on this thing?
How do I start?
Yeah. Well, you know, this is great. Like, oh, it's got the micro SD card, the hard drive, the graphics, motherboard, ton of information. Puriform Specky is free, and it gives you pretty much all the deets on the system, and it gets kind of ridiculous if you want to. For example, I'm looking at the RAM here, DDR3, 8098 gigabytes, DRAM frequency, CAS latency. This is awesome. It's a lot like the Bellark Advisor or HWinfo. And since I'm out of control, other random apps I'm using a lot, Ninite Updater, Foobar 2000, TweetDeck, ShareX, Handbrake, CPUID, a hardware monitor, which reminds me, remember my problem with applying the thermal paste?
Yes.
It turns out if your thermal paste has basically, like if whatever the goop is that makes thermal paste more liquidy dries out, it's impossible to apply thermal paste because it comes like thermal compound or thermal rock.
It expired.
Thermal mud. I've never had
totally
a tube
expired.
It did. It did. Well, I went to like reapply it, and it was like, and I'm like, was it? And then I'm like, well, can I? And then I went to wipe it, and like there was still like a mound.
Oh,
I was like, huh.
Gross.
And then I was like, you know, alcohol, cleaning, drying, cleaning, and got another tube I had, and it was like, whoosh, and I was like, oh.
Ew.
My thermal compound had dried out.
So we know the problem now.
The heartbreak of dead thermal compound. Got something worse? Got a question? Got a piece of software you want to tell the audience about here at Tekthing? Email us, ask@tekthing.com. We're looking forward to getting your mail, and we try to answer each and every one. Thank you for sending them. The parade of shiny new Android phones continues as we march toward the holiday shopping season. Shannon is hands-on right now with the new Nexi, the 6B, and the 5X. Are either of these going to replace your beloved Samsung? Samsung.
I might keep the Samsung, but yes, yeah, though I'm not entirely satisfied with the new Nexuses. We did give you the specs of both of these phones a few weeks ago, so for that, if you do want to check it out, it's episode 39, the new Nexus 5X and 6P on the Tekthing YouTube channel. But yeah, these are the new Nexuses. I first off want to start with some general observations.
One's bigger than the other.
Congratulations. I love Marshmallow. Really love Marshmallow. Yeah, it's my new favorite thing. So there's a few general things that I noticed about them. Now on tap is very cool. It's basically whenever you see something that somebody texted you and you want to get some more information, you hold down on the home button and it brings up more information about it, so you can see it on Google Maps. You can call a restaurant, do things like that. Really cool. I haven't used it too much yet because I really haven't needed to, because I generally know the areas that I live in. Like, I know what time the restaurant closes, so I don't really need to call them. But had I needed that, it's very easy to get into that information and just call them up. Cool. Both of the phones are encrypted right outside the box, which is super sweet. Editing permissions is so simple now, and I really like that. It's one of my nicest features that I prefer. And
when you say permissions, you mean like, you know, I downloaded a flashlight app, but it wants access to my contents and my credit card numbers and my address and my face and my genetic gene pool, DNA
So
stuff.
here's a great example. For example, I have the flashlight app. I can just simply go into the app's settings, under the settings, and to go into permissions. Luckily, this one only needs the camera permission. So if I didn't want that anymore, I could just turn it off, and then it would say, hey, this is going to screw up the usage of this application. Or if it doesn't actually need that permission, it'll just turn it off for you. It's really handy. Both of the phones also have the fingerprint sensors on the back. Had no problems with that. So every time I click it, it unlocks. It's very useful. For example, I'll just put my finger on the back. It unlocks. So easy. And my finger actually just falls right in place. So it's really nice for me. It's very easy to use. They both use USB-C, which is super sweet. hella fast charging, but man, now I gotta buy a bunch of new chargers, which I'm not too excited about. But, you know, I like to have a charger at work and one at home next to my bed, so now I have to buy an extra charger. But luckily the 6P does come with a adapter for USB Type A to C. Unfortunately, the 5X does not.
But they both come with, they're USB-C at the phone end and like regular USB at the, okay.
Yeah, so they both have the super compatible USB-C both ways at the very bottom, and it's really easy to plug in, so I like USB-C, it's very handy. Now I did get a lot of questions about which phone am I going to keep, so I basically just did a face-off for both of them. So for screens, both of the phones have really excellent resolutions and very clear displays. I didn't have any problems with like seeing pixels when I was reading or anything like that. No pixels are noticeable. I felt like the 5X colors seemed a little bit washed out compared to the 6P. The 6P has really popping colors whenever you're looking at like the same wallpaper, for example. When I surveyed my friends walking around here in the warehouse and whenever I was checking like back at home with some friends there, they don't review products necessarily, but my friends said that the 5X was realistic, except for him and Darren, yeah. But the 6P makes part of the picture stand out. Like the contrast is a lot better on the 6P, but its color accuracy is not as good as the 5X, so it doesn't feel as realistic.
So maybe the 6P is tuned like a television at the big box store where they want to make it look more fabulous.
Yes.
Perhaps at the expense of color accuracy.
Yes, exactly. Which is kind of funny because my Note 4 is just like the 6P.
Outdoors, outside.
Yeah, so that was interesting. That was very interesting. So both did really good indoors, but outside the 5X is much easier to see and seems brighter, likely due to its luminance. So the 6P is only 356 nits, which is kind of average. The 5X is 487, which is really, really good. So the 5X is much more on par with like the iPhone 6 and the Note 4 and stuff like that, or the Note 5, while the 6P is more on par with like cheaper phones, which I was like, what the heck? So yeah, this is a link to a whole bunch of benchmarks which include both the 5X and the 6P, so you can see all the different display measuring techniques used. This is over at phonearena.com, very, very useful. So I felt like the Note 5 is way better than the Nexus 6P for screen measurements. So is the iPhone 6s Plus, which is crazy to me, but I guess it's...
Well, they're also much more expensive.
They are more expensive, exactly. Yeah. Now the 5X is one of the most accurate color screens that you can get in this generation of phones this year, which is kind of surprising as well since it is cheaper. But you can watch videos on the 6X up to 2560 by 1440, while on the 5P it's only 1920 by 1080 because that resolution difference.
So it's a 1080p screen on the 5X and like a WQ HD on the
But since it's
6P.
a smaller display, you don't really notice that. Because, hey, smaller display.
1080p looks fine at 42 inches. Believe me, at 5 3/4 inches.
Now with voice commands, searching, wireless connection speed, stuff like that. Let's do a example. Okay, Google. Search Game of Thrones. They both do pretty good. Pretty close. Seemed like this one was a little bit slower, just a little bit, but not by much.
Yeah, like a half a second.
Yeah. So they're really quick, very easily understanding me, even though like I forget what I'm saying for half of the sentence. So really good at that kind of stuff. They were very quick to find my results, and generally the 6P was much snappier than the 5X.
Which makes sense. It's got a faster processor.
Yes, it does. That one has a 810 processor, Snapdragon, and the other one has a 808. So one thing to keep in mind. The speakers, the 6P definitely sounded a lot better than 5X, probably because of the dual stereo speakers. The 5X has one single speaker on the front. Both of them are on the front, which is great. This 5X sounding more tinny than the 6P. The 6P sounded very blown out when I went to full volume, which was kind of unfortunate. But hey, they're on the front, and that is awesome just right there. So I was very happy that they were on the front. The battery lasted a lot longer on the 6P than the 5X when doing the exact same things on both of the phones, which is kind of go figure because the battery in the 6X is bigger.
Right.
But so is the screen, so I figured
usually
maybe they would be closer.
Usually the bigger screens well, it's not a quad 8. Maybe it's not the fact that it's not a quad HD screen.
Maybe.
I don't know.
So I was doing things like watching movies, taking pictures, general browsing. The 5X had 15% after 5 hours and 41 minutes use. The 6P was 7 hours and 22 minutes until it hit 15%. So a nice big gap there of a little bit over an hour. Generally, I really like the design of the 5X a lot more than I do the 6X. it doesn't get as hot because, hey, guess what? The 6X is metal, so duh,
it conducts heat.
Conducts a lot more heat. This one's plastic. The design on the back is a lot more aesthetically pleasing to me because the 6X, it's kind of ugly, to be honest.
Is that the Huawei phone?
Yeah, the Huawei phone is a little bit ugly. Sorry guys, but that's how I feel. The metal also picks up a lot more moisture from your hands, while the 6P, the shell doesn't pick up fingerprints or anything at all. So I really like this aesthetic quality. Also, the LED inside the speaker grill is really cute whenever you get notifications. Very, very cute. I like what you did there, LG. Good job. Call quality, both of them were really clear. Nothing to really report on there. I used my Verizon SIM card in both of them and it was fine. I did get Google Fi as well. I have a SIM card from them, so I'm going to be testing that too, so I can report on Google Fi eventually. Lastly, the camera. So this is probably the big thing that a lot of people are interested in, and myself as well. So first off, for the sky test, aka going outside. Neither one really washed out other features in the pictures, but the white truck in both of these was kind of blown out. So there's supposed to be like nail grills on the side of this truck, and you can't really see them. So this is the 5X, that's the 6P. They both pretty much look equal. And then I did a little bit more on inside, so this is actually going inside the warehouse.
The terrible Nyan cat photo.
So this was on the 5X, and then again we have the 6P. So in this one, the 5X seemed to have a lot more clarity in the actual LEDs of the lights, while the 6P seemed a little bit more blown out than you would expect. So something to keep in mind. This is an incredibly dark room. So when we turn off all the lights in this studio, it gets pretty freaking dark, but it still brings out a lot of quality, a lot of color from something that's sitting in a very, very dark room. So I was really impressed with both of them when it came to low lights footage. Very, very good on that settings. For cat pictures, because everybody has pets at home. Yeah, so I decided to test that too. 5X did really well. It has a little bit of problems bringing out all the fur in Kirby's face.
But compared to an Android phone 2 or 3 years ago, this is a ridiculous improvement.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is in the background, in the operating system.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. The 6P did great as well, so I was really happy with both of those. Sarah's gonna hate me, but I took a picture of her at her desk. You'll notice that this is CFL lighting. You'll notice that up here, looks like a pretty normal wall, but you look at the 6P footage and it's kind of yellow. So the 6P brought out a little bit of yellow in the very white walls that we have in our office space, which was kind of surprising. And lastly, I took selfie pictures because who doesn't take selfies? So both of them didn't do that great with selfies. The 5X I felt like was a little washed out, while the 6P made me a little bit yellow. So also wasn't too thrilled with either of those selfie
Are those 5
cams.
megapixel cameras?
The 5X is 5 and the 6P is 8.
It's funny. Is that the 6P we're looking at right now on your screen?
Yes, it is.
That doesn't look natural.
No, it doesn't. Isn't that weird?
No, it's irritating.
So which one am I going to keep? It's kind of a hard choice. I mean, neither of them was perfect.
Right.
I guess the 6P, the resolution, the size quality, like how big it is, and the battery life are really, really big perks for me, as well as the better security of having a vanilla Android phone as compared to a Samsung or whatever else is on the market. I really like Marshmallow. Huawei really needs to step up their game when it comes to the color quality of the 5P or the 6P, because wasn't too thrilled with the color quality of the screen compared to the LG one.
So the reality is outside of the pure Android experience, you don't really like either of these phones that much compared to like the Samsung Note 5.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, so part of the tradition of Nexus is giving you a tremendous amount of phone of that $350 sub $400 price level. Is it me, or does Motorola's G seem like, if you want to, buy off contract, I just feel like the Motorola G is a better deal than the 5X if you want like pure Android on a cheap phone.
I guess, yeah, if you can get with the smaller screen resolution of the G, then cool. But I would go for the Pure, to be honest. The Moto X Pure, I really haven't gotten a chance to check out that one personally, but with the specs alone, that one's a really good deal because you get really nice quality with that.
We wait.
Better camera.
For a Moto X Pure.
Oh, I want a Pure.
All
the phones. I just want to hold them all at the same time and hug them.
Yes, but then you want to let some of them go. Like, it seems like at best thumbs eh.
Yeah, pretty much just eh. You know, I'm pretty sure that I'm just gonna keep like my Note 4 as my day-to-day phone because the camera's better on it and because I feel more comfortable with it. But this one is great for my work phone because it is more secure with Marshmallow. So I really like Marshmallow. Just not super happy with the camera and the screen on this guy.
Other than the camera and the screen, two of the most important elements of the phone, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Little Darren Kitchen from Richmond, California writes in, big fan, just got into Mass Effect 8 years late and was heartbroken to find out the trilogy is only available for the graphically unimpressive Xbox 360 and PS3 consoles. NPC, finally, a reason for a Titan. Anyway, rather than endure the pathetic shooter game mechanic with a lame console controller, I am interested in the ultimate keyboard mouse peripherals to take my epic gaming rig from the desktop to the couch. What should I get? Keep up the great show, Darren.
Aw.
Darren, thanks for editing the show and TDing the show and letting us use your studio.
So for clarification, he is looking for a good gaming keyboard and mouse that he can plug directly into the tower because it will be sitting next to his couch. Yeah. So no wireless is needed here, which is great because I would not recommend wireless keyboard and mouse combo for gaming because lag equals death in gaming.
And I know some of you are immediately leaping to your keyboards to write us emails telling you about your awesome skills at wireless gaming, keyboard,
I will totally
mousing.
versus you, play a match in some game and let you play with your wireless keyboard and mouse.
$20 a respawn or $100 a respawn?
Oh. Oh. I can afford $1.
Well, you know, big money betting just ain't around here. It's really weird. Like when you start looking at gaming mice and keyboards, they're either like $20 or $160. There's not a whole lot in between. My favorite gaming keyboard remains the IBM Model M, which oddly enough was nearly stolen off my desk several times by a hardcore gamer in the old office who was not yet old enough to drink, Cisco. The keyboard in question was actually older than Cisco, but Cisco loves the IBM Model M's, and he is an absolute badass gamer.
Cool.
He's a little frightening to watch. He destroys people, probably for big money. Darren is actually probably good to go. He has a DOS keyboard he uses on his desktop.
Oh, clicky, clicky.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to get too deep into the whole key question. Cherry MX browns, blues, reds, etc.
We could do a whole segment in that.
Oh, you could do a whole show on that. Blues are very clicky or tactile, and I'm pretty sure those are the ones in the DOS keyboard that Darren has, which is pretty much good to go for gaming, except that it's like the all-black super hacker version, so figuring out which keys you need to hit for a weird keyboard combo could be weird. If you want a new keyboard just for games, something that's still tactile but quieter, a lot of folks love Razer's Black Widow. The Ultimate Elite has their custom switches. It's like 5 additional gaming keys with on-the-fly macro recording, which begins making macros to do crazy stuff in your game super easy. The Chrome version, do I have it here? That's not the Chrome version, that's the CM Storm. Devastator. The Chroma version is their crazy rainbow one. Yes. You know, yeah, like 16.8 million color options behind the keys. Hopefully programming those keys has gotten easier. So it's $170 or $166.99 to put a rainbow on your desk. Who doesn't want a rainbow on their desk?
That's too much.
Okay, well, if it's too much, I mean, the regular Ultimate version is like $107. Okay. Is it? Yeah, $107.99. If you're like, that's still way too much, or I'm buying it for a teenager or a fickle 8-year-old, the Cooler Master, the CM Storm Devastator, they do an LED gaming keyboard and mouse combo for like $30. Cool. A lot of people like it. I mean, you're looking at like 2,349 customer reviews, and it's like at 4 stars. Okay. 6-button mouse, backlit keyboard available in like blue, red, or green. The mouse supports 1,000, 1,600, or 2,000 DPI. A lot of super gamers find that frustrating because they want more granular control. I think this is a great keyboard and mouse as a step up from the crap in the box most manufacturers ship without going like $200 in the hole for a serious gaming setup. Other awesome options include, hey, the Corsair Vengeance K70 mechanical gaming keyboard. Which is a really nice keyboard, actually, and also nice. The Logitech G710 Plus, which is also one with mechanical keys.
I used that one for like 7 years.
7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny, like the G710 Plus you can do either Cherry, MX Brown, or Blue keys, so you have the option of getting the fit that you want. What's really kind of crazy is when you start looking at mice, the whole gaming mouse situation is completely unhinged. And you're going to step in at this point.
I know mice. So on the gaming mouse front, there's a lot of options. But some of my personal favorites that I've been using for a few years now is the Rootkit Kone XTD. This one, what I really like about gaming mice is when they come with the additional weights.
Right.
So you can change the
throw
power.
weight of the
the
mouse.
throw weight. I mean, that comes in really, really important whenever you're playing certain video games. So it's very important to me that I have weights in my mouse.
I don't know if it's because I have the giant paws of doom, but like I've never gotten a lot out of making a mouse heavier or lighter, or maybe I just suck as a gamer.
FPS, it definitely gives you an advantage whenever you're playing FPS. They have programmable features, not a ton of keys on the Rootkit Kone XTD, but it does have that nice threaded USB cord too, so you're not going to get it all tangled up or anything like that.
That's a big plus.
The other ones that I really like, now you might consider this one, it's the G700S rechargeable gaming mouse. Now you think, wireless? No, can't have wireless, but this one also comes with a micro USB to USB, so you can actually plug it into your machine and use it that way, which is what I would do, but it also has a lot of programmable buttons on it, and it's very, very quick and easy to use. And lastly, the other one, this is the one that I've been using at home for several years now. It's the G500S, also has the weight and balance adjustments with the weights on the bottom of it, has the nice threaded, USB cord, that's what it's called. And you can also change the speed of the rotator on the top, which is really excellent on the wheel at the top.
Something that you may be picking up from what Shannon's saying here is if you want to spend like $60 or $100 or goodness help you, $1,000 on a gaming mouse, I'm sure somebody out there is selling one, you really should spend the time putting into it to figure out like the DPI levels, the switch levels, adjusting things, creating macros for games. You will get a lot more out of it if you spend the time with the manual RTFM and dig deep into it and play around with the weights. Apparently the weights are a big deal.
Yeah, if you're playing FPS, use the weights. It's really important. Yep, so those are my recommendations for mice, and his recommendations for keyboards.
There's so many mice. So many mice.
There's just one right now.
Some of them are really expensive. Oh my goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're a fan of Tekthing, do us a favor, make sure you subscribe to Tekthing.com on iTunes or YouTube.com/Tekthing, and make sure you get each and every episode. If you want to take it to all the shows. If you want to keep the show going, consider contributing to the show at patreon.com/Tekthing. You can donate however much you want. Every little bit counts, and you get access to our special Patreon-only builds. We've done Arduino, we've done Raspberry Pi, we've built PCs, we've done liquid cooling, and there's more to come. If you can't donate, that is okay, we understand. Please take the time to send us your questions, your tips, and share the show with your friends and family. And hey, if you have a chance to do an iTunes review or give us the thumbs up, the liking, as it were, on our Facebook page or on YouTube, it all helps. Seriously, thank each and every one of you for supporting the show. No matter how you do it, we are happy to be here making the show for you. That reminds me, if you want to experiment with a better way of, because I hunch in the living room over the coffee table with the keyboard and mouse, and Darren had this stricken look on his face. Levenger's lap desk is one of the finest computing tools made for your lap. I mean, you could also just cut a piece of board out of plywood, but this is pretty bomber.
Well, that's just so fancy.
Well, lap desks. The trick is to not get too enthusiastic with your mouse with a lap desk and like zip it off this way and then fling it into the distance. It's always
into your TV, along with your Apple remote.
Hate that. We got your emails, your tweets, and your posts, trusting Lenovo and the OneKey Optimizer. So OneKey Optimizer was installed in some models by the Lenovo Service Engine, which was buried in the UEFI BIOS on the Lenovo models, and it would happen every time you booted the machine. It was actually in there for about 6 weeks, and Lenovo now recommends that users patch the BIOS to disable LSE, and the company says it stopped pre-installing LSE in May. It is no longer being installed on Lenovo systems, and again, they strongly recommend that you update your BIOS with firmware that disables or removes this feature. If you go to Lenovo.com, we have a link in the show notes. It'll actually show you all of the models it was put on. It is unfortunate that this was found to be insecure, because I understand what they were trying to do, which is make sure that consumer laptops were updated with things like security and new drivers and stuff like that, because a lot of consumers, as you know, because you do tech support for your friends and family, don't ever bother to update things. On the flip side, there's a part of me that's like, so thinking BIOS is automatically going to reinstall a piece of software I removed? Ew! do. But I am often at war with myself, so it feels tremendously.
I had a lot of people say, well, you know, does this change your answer? Would you still buy a Lenovo laptop? And I'm like, well, yeah, because P.S., you can wipe your BIOS entirely. It's a thing. So check out Libreboot.org, for example. This is a completely different thing other than BIOS and UEFI, which you can put on your in your computer. So you can use that instead. But of course, proceed with caution because you will be erasing your BIOS.
And if it doesn't work, you
be careful.
Turn your laptop into a brick or your motherboard into a brick, which
Pretty much.
is always awkward.
But yeah, if I'm super paranoid about a Lenovo laptop, but I really want to get one, then yeah, I'll go with Libreboot and put that on it instead. We also got a Black Friday question from Ben, which has you questioning a few things, huh?
Okay, so we got a Black Friday question from Ben, which has me actually wanting to ask you, what would you like to see for our show that airs the week of Black Friday? Our favorite stuff for the year, holiday shopping ideas. It seems that most of the Black Friday deals go stale almost immediately or get sold out almost immediately.
Yeah.
Maybe our tips are not getting ripped off on Black Friday. Let us know, ask@tekthing.com, or we can just do a regular show. We are curious what you would like.
Couponing!
Which brings us to Ben. Couponing is fun, but I ain't waiting out in front of the Walmart at 4 a.m.
Me neither.
Ben writes in, I'm running a 128 gigabyte OCZ Vertex 3 as my main operating system drive. However, I'm hitting the dreaded wall of limitations with this small 128 gigabyte drive. Black Friday is right around the corner now. Do you anticipate prices to drop further than they are for the 256 to 512 gigabyte drives? I've had my eyes on a 256 gigabyte Samsung 850 EVO, but if prices are expected to drop even more, I may go for a 512 gigabyte model instead. I'm just interested in your thoughts at this point. Ben.
Thank you, Ben. And today's recommendation from your local couponer and savvy shopper is to wait. Because we will see a ton of really awesome deals on solid state drives and hard drives and probably motherboards too from all sorts of websites on Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Electronics are one of the highest discounts that you can get on Black Friday and Cyber Monday on all the websites. So I would say pick a few possibilities that you have your eye on, write down their price per gig right now, and then check them again at midnight come Black Friday and then come Cyber Monday. If it's a really awesome deal, they sell out crazy fast. If it's not, well, then you have the option to buy it whenever you want. So there you go.
Just be aware that Black Friday is also an extraordinary opportunity that many retailers take advantage of to dump the worst crap they can't sell on an unsuspecting public desperate to get a deal. For example,
which is why I say write down which ones you want now, check their prices per gig, and then check it on Black Friday. If those ones don't go on sale, just buy them some other time. Well,
you know, there was a deal on it was like two 128 gigabyte drives for like $80 on Newegg, and I was like, yeah! And then I'm like, oh, they're the OCZ Vertex drive with the issues. Or there's like Corsair 200 and 600 drives have some issues with performance. Do your research now before you find yourself with something like you can't return after Black Friday that doesn't deliver the performance you want. And by the way, like the 500 gigabyte 850 EVO has dropped $20 in the last 7 or 10 days.
Oh yeah, we're going to see a lot of price fluctuation in November and December. It always happens.
Always.
So keep an eye. And remember, once in a while, put down your phone, step away from the screen, especially if you're planning on shopping and you actually need to get to the stores, if you choose to do that on Black Friday. Tune up your car. Do something analog and tune up your car.
Have you ever tuned up a car?
No, but he has. Make sure that your car is ready for the winter time. I have done that.
Yeah? Have you replaced your coolant? You probably don't need to replace your coolant. Your coolant's probably good for like 60,000 miles.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, I did it a long time ago in my old car.
These new modern cars, they're amazing how little maintenance they need. My 92 Volvo, or my wife's 92 Volvo, not so maintenance free.
No.
I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Shannon Morse.
We'll see you next week on Tekthing.
Bye-bye.
My truck. I love my truck.
I love my truck too.
You don't have a truck.
Nope.
You're loopy. You need lunch.
I do need lunch. It is 4 p.m. and I have not had lunch because I care about you. I'm hungry. Screw you, Nexus. Oh, thanks.
Sea
I don't
salt
eat on
popcorn.
camera though.
Because it turns into GIFs.
I'll just stand here and smell it.
Or GIFs if you prefer.
Oh, it smells so good.
That's so wrong. We want to thank all of you for making this moment involving the popcorn bag possible.
Dude, did you know you can heat up a Pop-Tart while it's still in the bag on your PS4?
Heat up. You said eat up.
Heat.
I know. But,
said
but
heat.
eating a Pop-Tart in the bag would be...
I said heat.
It's not what... Okay. You said heat.
He's like scarfing it with the aluminum.
One of our cats likes to lick plastic bags. It is the worst sound ever. The sound of a cat's tongue on a plastic bag. It's just singularly awful.
Is it like nails on a chalkboard? Awful.
Different, but just as awful. And we're out.